Jay. Welcome to Muskogee Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. It's Jay, Stone Go, Gary Fife, Joho Jifkidos. We've got a lot of stuff to share with you today. We will be getting an update on the changes, excuse me here, on the Miss Muskogee Creek Nation and Junior Miss Muskogee Creek Nation Scholarship Pageant that will be coming up later. Oh, by the way, if you want to enter, the applications are available. And in our second segment, we'll be talking about the Estuce Fest, kind of a birthday party for children, infants to be born, and how to best care for them. So a lot of information to share. And if you'll remember last year, we spoke with a couple of TU behavioral psychology professors about a study they were conducting on pain among Native American people. This was very inclusive of the tribes here in our section of the state, and they've produced their first set of results. And before they go on to the next phase of their study, and what it boils down to is, ouch, Native Americans do feel pain more than others, but are able to bear it. No surprise to us, right? Okay, well, we'd like to welcome Faith Harjo and Brittany Hill to our studio today. How are you today?
It's Jay. I'm doing well. Thank you for having us.
It's Jay.
Okay, so Hede Mahi. We have the the Scholarship Pageant coming up pretty quick, and I understand there are some changes in maybe the way it's going to do, and you want to get some folks, some young women interested in participating, right?
Yes, the biggest change we have right now is we have extended the deadline for the applications. The deadline is now March 16th, 2018.
And the other biggest change is actually having a staff person fully in charge of it and committed to that task.
That's right. The royalty coordinator is a brand new position, and I am very thankful and honored to have been selected to be involved in this capacity with Muskogee Creek Nation. I'm really excited to see everything that we'll be able to plan and that we'll be able to do for our current title holders and also for the new ones that we'll be selecting very soon.
Okay, you ready for the headaches and the craziness that goes with it?
It's a lot of fun, so I don't know if there's a lot of headaches, but I could say there's definitely a little bit of craziness as well,
Okay.
just being busy.
All right, and Brittany, you've been through this experience as a member of the royalty in the past, right? That was in 2014?
Yes, I was Miss Muskogee Creek Nation 2014, 2015, and I'm just excited to see how the pageant has grown the past couple of years since my reign, and that's what I look forward to, is seeing this new crop of girls come up and represent our nation.
Well, let me start with you, and I understand our third person, Amberly Proctor, is on the line. You want to punch her up, and let's get her into our conversation. Good morning, Amberly. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Okay, well, great. Thank you for taking time to join us, and I'm glad you didn't get out on those nasty roads today. So stay safe at home while we can. Now, you also have worn the crown and had some wonderful experiences, right?
Yes, I did. It's I'm about 3 or 4 months away from the end of my reign, but so far it's been an amazing experience.
That's the question I was posing to Brittany here about what was that experience like? First of all, when you learned that you had won the competition, what was your first reaction there?
My first reaction was kind of disbelief. It was a very surreal moment, and it didn't really fully settle in until many hours after the pageant was over. But once it settled in, I was just so excited for what the year was going to hold for me, and to just, get out there and start representing as Miss.
Same question to you, Brittany. What was it like when you found out that you had won that competition? Was it a matter of shock?
I think it was a little bit of shock, overwhelming, joy, excitement. It's a great honor to be an ambassador for our nation, and something that I didn't take lightly.
Mm-hmm. I understand there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with that, and that's a pretty heavy burden to carry. What were your thoughts on all of a sudden saying, uh-oh, now I'm committed, now I have to do all this stuff and make this public appearance? What were you thinking there?
I don't know. I feel that was my hope, and, that's anyone's hope who decide to run, not only for the fun of it, but also, a chance to connect to our culture, learn more about our language and our customs and traditions. And so I just took it as an opportunity for me to learn more about my Muskogee people. And so I was excited about that.
Excuse me, gosh. I haven't any voice today. Amberly, now what were your thoughts when you realized you would be taking on all these responsibilities?
I was somewhat prepared for it. In talking to former princesses, I knew what a huge responsibility this was, and like Brittany said, I didn't take that lightly. I approached it almost like this is my job, and this is something that I'm going to give 110%. So I was in the right mindset. Obviously I didn't know what all this was going to entail, but I was in the right mindset, and that I knew, this was a huge responsibility, and it was, up to me to be able to carry out, the goals and objectives of being a goodwill ambassador for the Muskogee Creek Nation.
Now, Faith, what does the pageant committee do, your team, to help them make it through the year? I mean, you've got all the travel and, long hours, wearing these beautiful outfits out in the heat. June gets pretty nasty around festival time. What do you do there to help them out? Is there like a chaperone that goes with them? Do you stay on top of their schedules pretty tightly? How does that work?
Well, in the past, the pageant committee has really supported the title holders, and they plan the pageant and put it all together. However, with this new position opening up, they are the support for me, and they pretty much do the exact same thing that they have been doing, helping to plan the pageant, really having a lot of input and helping me as much as they can. And also, in addition, chaperoning the girls, making sure that they are prepared and ready for different events, looking for events for them to attend as well.
Now, is that looking like a pretty heavy schedule for the upcoming year?
I think right now it's starting to pick up, especially since their reign is coming to an end. It's usually slow in December and January, but they have been doing quite a few events just in the last 3 weeks since I have come on board. And there's a lot of different things that are coming up in March and in April that they'll be able to attend. One of the most important parts right now is I am focused on recruiting Muskogee women to put in their application, and so I will be attending different community meetings. I was at Coweta Community Meeting on Monday. I'll be at Tulsa Creek Indian Community on Thursday evening, and then some other community meetings in the coming weeks, just so we can get the word out and let them know that the applications are available, that we want them to put in their application.
I guess I'm becoming famous for asking the other side of the coin kind of question. Have there been times when it's been difficult, someone perhaps creating problems, I'm talking guys here looking at beautiful young Native women, that you've experienced, Brittany and Amberly? Did you run into that situation where you were made really uncomfortable being in a spot like that and having someone paying you some, let's call it, unwelcome attention?
That's the good thing about having a chaperone with us at all times is they're kind of like the barrier in between that. And so if there ever was an opportunity or a situation where we felt uncomfortable, we relied on our chaperones to kind of deal with that. So that's what I think separates some of the different titles around Indian country from the Muskogee Creek Nation, is that they do have a chaperone with them at all times to kind of help them with that in case that ever happens.
Amberly, were you ever in that position?
No, I personally have never experienced anything like that. Like Brittany said, and that's where our chaperones, they step in and, they make sure, we're protected from anything like that. And so, we, the committee members that are chaperoned us throughout the year have done an amazing job of, just making sure we're taken care of and that we're able to, focus on representing. So I've never personally experienced anything like that. That's why I'm so grateful for our chaperones, because I know they make sure that, we're stuff like that doesn't happen.
So the chaperone's there to kind of growl at some guy if he gets a little too close.
And that is one of the most important jobs of the chaperone, is really to protect our title holders, because they are our ambassadors for the nation and for our people. So we are like their personal bodyguards, I would say.
Yeah, well, that works. Now, I understand, of course, culture and language is quite important in this production. That's part of what you have to demonstrate when you win. How does the committee and the staff look at that situation? Are you looking for real fluency in the language or depth of knowledge of culture? I mean, they have to go stomp grounds or a church. How is that being seen as part of the requirement?
I would say that if you are thinking about putting in an application, that you should probably have a little bit of working knowledge about who you are and where you come from, who your family is. However, there's always room to learn and to grow, and you may not be fluent in the language, and you may not know as much as you think you should about culture, about your church or your stomp grounds, but I don't think that should discourage you from deciding to enter the scholarship pageant, because like I said, there are so many ways that our title holders grow throughout the year. And even though this is my first year on board, I know that from the time that Aisha and Amberly were selected last year, that there are probably numerous opportunities where they've just had that opportunity to showcase their talents and their gifts and just be able to learn as much as they possibly can by going back to the homelands in Georgia and going to Washington, D.C. and meeting just so many different dignitaries and important Muskogee people that's helped them grow as Muskogee women.
Let me take that question a step further for Brittany and Amberly here. Culture, how important was it? Did either of you feel like you had a really solid base in it where you could just deal with it? Or did you really have to study and find out that there was still a lot to learn for you? Let's start with you, Amberly.
Yeah, I absolutely felt like I had a solid foundation in the culture. From the time I was in third grade, I participated in the Muskogee Creek Nation Challenge Bowl, and that's really where it all began for me. Just from learning the history, from the beginning into modern day, and then learning the language, learning how to read in the language, just getting to learn all that and then practice it and not forget it as soon as competition was over, but still to be able to, use it in my life. And even though, I'm years removed from it, that has all stayed with me. So I definitely think that that helped me to, build my foundation, and then for me to continue to learn. And, growing up, I go to a traditional Creek Baptist church. So growing up in that, since I was a little girl, being around the elders, being around my family, that has just taken it a step further for me. So I definitely felt like I was grounded in that. But like Faith was talking about, there is always room to grow and, an opportunity to learn more. And that was something I know that I will never know as much as I would love to know. Like, there's always something I could be learning and, working towards. So just like she said, for anyone that is wanting to run don't let that discourage you if you feel like you don't have enough knowledge. You can always learn, and then if you're to win, you just continue to learn. It doesn't just stop after you win the pageant. We're always learning, and even after my reign is over, I'm going to continue to, learn more about the culture, the language, our history, and continue to seek other opportunities to just grow as a Muskogee woman.
Same question to you, Brittany. Did you feel like you were on solid ground culturally and linguistically?
I believe that, ever since I was a young girl, my parents have instilled in me the knowledge that, to always know where you come from and know who you are as an Indigenous woman. And, my mother is a non-Creek. She's Yankton Sioux. And so my father is full-blood Muskogee Creek. And so I always knew that growing up. And so they've always tried to bring me around my two different cultures. And I thought I was, of course, I felt like, deciding to run, that I should, take that opportunity to learn more about my Muskogee culture. And so after I won, I used that as an opportunity to learn more about my culture and traditions. And, I ran solely on the fact that, I wanted to do it for my father. He's full-blood Muskogee Creek. And so I wanted to do it for him. And so that was my reason for running. And ultimately, that brought me and him closer, I think.
The next question is kind of a silly one, but I'll ask it anyway. Was there ever a moment when you were on stage where you drew a blank?
Yes. I've had other titles besides Miss Muskogee Creek Nation. And so what my mom has always, tried to help me with is trying to think on my feet. And so I've had to, yes. And so she's always we're driving down the car and she'll throw me random questions just so I could get in the habit of thinking on my feet, which inevitably helped me out during the pageant.
Well, it's a pretty good skill to have in life. Amberly, I noticed that you mentioned the Challenge Bowl earlier. Now, Brittany, was the Challenge Bowl part of what you relied on?
Mm-hmm. I participated in the Challenge Bowl during my high school career, and it really opened the doors for me, the language and the culture, and it really brought an interest into me to learn more about it. Besides the study guide, I wanted to learn more, and so the Challenge Bowl really helped me connect with my Muskogee people.
And I understand Glenpool walked away with a big stack of honors again.
Yes.
Yay, Glenpool. Okay, now, Faith, what's happening now at this point? Are you totally concentrating on recruitment? You want to get more participation?
Yes, that's definitely our main focus is recruitment right now. We're waiting for some wonderful Muskogee young ladies to put in their application. We are waiting for you. So if you are even thinking about it, please contact us, especially if you need any help or have any questions at all. We are available to help you as much as possible, to walk you through the whole process. And that's one of the greatest things about being involved with this specific scholarship pageant is we don't just leave the girls out on their own to try and figure out what they're doing, especially if they don't have experience in it. The committee and also myself as the royalty coordinator, we are always looking to help you and to walk you just through the entire process. That way you understand and are prepared for what the scholarship pageant entails.
All right. Let me ask you this, though. Do you have former royalty on hand to coach the new applicant? Nothing like burping on microphone. To kind of be a resource for them. Brittany, have you ever talked to anyone who's thinking about applying?
Ever since my reign, I've tried to make it a mission of mine is to make myself available for any young girls who are even thinking about applying for the Miss Muskogee Creek Nation pageant. And so I always try to be known to the girls that I'm available if they need help with tips on where to get their regalia made or.
Mm-hmm. Amberly, have you done any coaching of any prospective applicants?
I've talked to several girls and have encouraged them to run, and in doing that, I just try to give them a short little summary of my experience and then just all the help and support and encouragement that I've received. I've let them know that, I would say that deciding to run is probably the hardest part, because as soon as you decide to run and turn in that application, you automatically have all the support and encouragement from, Faith, our pageant committee, the current princesses. So as soon as you decide to run, that's the hard part. After that, you're just connected to this wonderful group of people who will do everything they can to make sure that you're successful, in pursuing this title.
While I've got you there on the line here, your opportunities to meet other tribal royalty must be really fantastic there. What was it like when you met girls from other tribes, from far distant geographic areas and totally different cultures? Like, Amberly, what was going through your mind, and or maybe if you've got an experience to share?
It was an amazing experience. We attended, other tribal pageants, so not only did we get to meet the current title holders, we were also introduced to, the new title holders after they won, but it was just amazing because even though we're from, different tribes, different cultures, different backgrounds, we are linked in the fact that, we both are in these positions to represent our people. So to be able to talk to them and learn, about each other's cultures, but also to share similar, experiences of, representing, some of that is kind of uniform. It was good to make those connections and, to establish friendships with those girls, because that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing as goodwill ambassadors. We're supposed to be making these kinds of connections and friendships with people from, other tribes and cultures. So that was one of my favorite parts of my reign so far, has been, meeting other tribal royalty and, just getting to know them and learn about them and their culture.
Brittany, same question.
I was very fortunate during my reign to be able to travel all throughout the country to different states, and I was able to meet numerous title holders during my reign. And like Amberly said, that's something that I cherish, is our friendships that I've made throughout. And I've met so many people, and as I ventured north during my reign, it was funny because I was, a lot of people outside of Oklahoma and outside the southern part of the United States, they've never heard of Muskogee Creeks. And they're like, oh, you're Cree? Because there's a northern tribe named Crees.
Canadians.
Yes. And so they're like, oh, you're Cree? I was like, no, I'm Muskogee Creek. And so, I took that opportunity to inform them, and educate them. And so that was fun, introducing them to a tribe that they've never heard of. But, like Amberly said, I met tons of princesses, and, we're all in this together, representing our nations, our tribes. And so it's just something that I always look back on and with cherished memories.
Well, let me ask the two of you if you could give me a real quick capsule. Did you find that you had common ground with the other tribal royalty?
Yes. Representing our nations, it's a big honor, and that was something that we connected on, and being in touch with our language and our culture, and I thought we connected pretty well on that.
Amberly, common experience as tribal royalty, did you feel like you had common ground?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As we went to different events throughout the year, we would see the same tribal princesses over and over again. So, of course, we had that in common, just traveling to a lot of the same events, representing our tribes. And then even, from a pageant experience, I can remember some of us talking about, what our pageant experience was like, and, the different, talents, that they did were similar, even though it's a different culture, but kind of the same idea. So, yeah, we definitely had a lot of common ground, and, as we saw each other more, we got to know each other more and figure that out. So it was good opportunities, amazing experiences to meet, all these other princesses and just learn about each other.
Wow, gosh, my voice is giving me problems here. All right, now, Faith, are you like at the beginning of your recruitment efforts, season, so to speak? How long does that run, and maybe a couple of requirements?
Well, we are going to be recruiting right up until the deadline, which again is March 16th. I will be at several community meetings in the coming weeks, and we'll have both of our title holders at different events that are being held locally in Okmulgee and Tulsa and some other areas. But if you would like to know what we're going to be doing, please log on to Facebook. We have a Miss and Junior Miss Muskogee Creek Nation page. We're also on Twitter and Instagram under Muskogee Royalty. You can also go to the Muskogee Creek Nation website as well, and we do have a Scholarship Pageant website. If you access Facebook, the link is on there. A couple qualifications are you must have a current GPA of 2.5 or higher, must be an enrolled citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation. There are two different categories. Our junior miss must be between the ages of 14 and 17, and the miss category, you must be between the ages of 17 and 24 years by January 1st, 2018.
Now, the contact for anyone who has questions or is interested in getting an application.
Yes, you can contact me. My office phone number is 918-549-2601, and also there is an email that you can contact me at. It is mcnpageant@mcn-nsn.gov.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for taking time this morning, and I'm sure there will hopefully, I'm sure there will be applicants coming in your way and just break all the hearts of these Creek guys.
Well, Mado for having us.
Yes,
All
Mado.
right. Have fun with it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a short pause here, and then we're going to see if we can't get real quick information about an infant birthday party, shall we call it, coming up soon, and then we'll hear about our pain interview. So stay with us here on Muskogee Radio. We'll be back right after this.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Well, okay, that moment of silence is brought to you by the Brew. We have on the line Natalie Russell. Good morning, Natalie. Thank you for taking a little bit of time to chat with me. The Estuce Fest, right now. I'm a beginning Muskogee student, so did I get that pronounced correctly?
Estuce, yes.
Thank you. I'm glad, because I know I would have heard about that later on. Estuce, and I hope Mahia Barnett forgives me for that. The festival is a baby shower hosted by the Tribal Child and Youth Coalition and is coming up soon. What have we got involved with this festival?
We will actually be doing a few car seat checks, some education pieces in there on the period of purple crying, and we'll have some door prizes and food. We just want to make it welcoming to all our families. We'll also have a resource fair there. So we've asked some resources across the community that serve families with children 0, for, babies age group.
Now,
come and join us.
What's the mission? What is the I guess, the motivation for putting this fest together?
Infant mortality is kind of an issue across all communities, and we are modeling ours based off of the state. The state actually started an initiative a couple of years ago, and we want to get the information out to the families, those education pieces, kind of get families started on reflection and on their own upbringing. In the past, there have been studies done called the ACEs study, and it kind of had to do with, childhood trauma and how that affected adults as they got older, whether it's their mental health or their physical health. And our primary goal here is to catch those families early. So we can kind of prevent a lot of future health issues.
Is that quantifiable? Are there numbers for the problem that our people are facing there?
There are. 1 second, I am looking for that.
It sounds like your morning is going the same way mine is here.
Yeah.
We'll make it up as we go here.
Well, I'll kind of revisit
okay.
the question you asked me earlier real quick while I'm looking for these numbers. The goal of Estuce Fest is to provide educational information to help Muskogee Creek Nation mothers, fathers, and their babies stay healthy during and after pregnancy.
No.
And again, it was modeled after an evidence-based initiative promoted by National Office of Minority Health and Department of Health and Human Services.
The information you're presenting here is designed to help head off these problems. Now, this is the second festival you've had?
Yes, this is the second one, and we do plan to make this a yearly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And these are happening across different communities. I know there's getting ready to be one even in Wagner, April 7th. So if this one is full, keep your eye out for other ones.
Okay, sounds like a great idea. Now, who showed up last year? Who was partaking of this information?
Any families that were expecting or had children up to age 2 years old.
So these were primarily young families?
Yes.
Okay. And you've got quite a list of events and information you'll be sharing with us. Do these families have something to take home that they can refer to or a resource there?
We generally have some diaper bags, and we do that have information in them, different resources that are available to them across the community and across the tribe. So yes, they will have information to reference once they get home as well. Right.
It would seem like there's a lot there to take in, so it might be kind of hard to remember it all. First of all, who is eligible to take part, to come over and join in?
Any expectant mother, they do have to verify citizenship. So for our specific Estuce Fest, you do have to be a Creek citizen. We need to see that CDIB card, whether it's the mother or the father of the child. Or if, we have adoptive and foster families out there that have Creek children, we just need to see that child's roll number or, some sort of verification that they are a Creek citizen.
And what's the debt? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So either mother, father, or child is Creek citizen and up to age 2. Expecting and then up to age 2.
Okay. So that's pretty solid proof of relationship and citizenship to participate in. So you've got to have that with you. Now, is this something that you pre-register for, or can you just show up?
Yes, it is something that you pre-register for, and the last I checked, we were full. However, we have some that have not turned in their verification forms, so we're checking with them, and if we have any spaces come available, we will have an opportunity about 5:30 after all of our participants have checked in, and our pre-registered participants have checked in. So at 5:30, if we have any open spots available, we can take on-site registrations. But again, those spots are going to be few and far between because at this point we are full.
Okay, so it's going to be a busy educational session and not just some sort of a child babysitting service for the day, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if someone was interested in attending the Estuce Fest, how would they get in touch with you?
They could give me a call at 918-224-9307.
Okay, wonderful. Any last thoughts you'd care to share with us while we've got you here?
Our babies are our future.
That's a pretty good one.
We also, our department within behavioral health, I'm with Project Launch, and we do teach the 5 S's of calming a baby, also known as Happiest Baby on the Block. And they're skills pretty much that everybody already does, but we do them in a specific sequence and in a certain manner, and we hit that baby's calming reflex, and it works. It works like a charm.
Okay. Well, we wish you well. It's good to hear that you're all booked up. It's wonderful to know that these young people want this information and are willing to put themselves out to obtain it. So good luck with it.
And this is an event that the council supports. So this is something that we did the first one, and the numbers were amazing. The feedback was amazing, and the families really wanted to keep it going. So council approved that.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you, Council. We appreciate it. Mado. Natalie, thank you much. Keep us posted on how it goes. We'll probably keep this on the list of subjects we're going to want to revisit at some point.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. It's a pleasure. Now, stay off the roads. There's a little tricky here today. Okay, Mado.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, we have an interview we recorded with a couple of TU professors about pain among Native Americans. So we took a little time to find out how their study went and what their findings are indicating. And it sounds like they're underlining the fact that we're pretty tough folks. So let's listen to that interview, and then we'll be back with a few community announcements.
Joanna Shadlow. I'm an applied associate professor of psychology.
I'm Jamie Rudy, PhD. I'm a full professor in clinical psychology here at the University of Tulsa.
All right. Last time we spoke, we were looking at your study of pain among Native Americans that was in progress. Now, are you at a point where you can share some results?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're glad to be able to do that. So I can't actually remember when the last time we talked to you was. It's been several years now. So the study's now in its 5th year. So I think we might have talked to you around the 1st year. So it's been a while. It's been very successful so far. We've been able to recruit. I'm looking at my numbers right now. We have information on about 306 individuals. Not everybody completed the study. We have about 314 people who have gone through all aspects of our study, so that's really great. And if you remember, we started this study based on a very, very small study that we originally conducted that suggested there may be some differences between the Native American participants and our comparison group, such that they were insensitive to pain, so that they were had a harder time feeling pain, higher tolerances, and we suspected this might be a risk factor given the high prevalence of chronic pain in the Native American community. So one of the things we know about small studies is that they need to be replicated in a larger sample so that we can better generalize to the people that we're trying to study. And so that's what this study was really all about. So we got funding from NIH to do a larger study, and we are trying to recruit about 120 people per group, so we're shooting for 240. Currently what we're finding is that our original results are not replicating, which is not always surprising, and what we're finding is that the Native American sample is actually showing the opposite of what we found in our small pilot study. So there is an increased sensitivity to pain, such that the tolerances are lower, and there is a tendency to respond with greater anxiety and sort of negative emotions to some of the stimuli, which suggests we know that negative emotions can sometimes amplify pain, and so this could actually be a much more simple explanation for why there may be a higher prevalence of chronic pain, because these are more direct risk factors where if you have an increased sensitivity to pain, you get injured, then that is more likely to go on to develop long-term pain that persists.
Let me jump in here for a second. Now, did I hear you say that Native Americans were more sensitive to pain? Is that kind of what I heard?
Yes. So the larger study is suggesting that there is a greater sensitivity, and we know, and this is a common risk factor that we see in other populations that are at risk for pain as well. You tend to see what we call hyperalgesia, or a greater sensitivity to pain. That's the fancy word for that. And a lot of times our pain populations that are at risk for pain show this hyperalgesia.
And these results are similar within the Hispanic and African American literature as well.
Yes, so it's consistent with that.
What are the reasons behind? Have you probed into that area, and do you have something?
Yeah, so this was not part of the original study, but some ancillary analyses that we've done on our sample is really and has sort of defined the next direction for us. And so you're probably aware that within the Native American community, diabetes is very, very prevalent, more than double the white community, and the Native American community also tends to suffer more from diabetes when they get it. And so diabetes is a result of a dysregulation of blood sugar. And what we looked at in our current study, although we excluded people for diabetes, we were able to get a lot of variables that told us who were at greatest risk for diabetes. So increasing age, overweight, family history of diabetes. So there's a number of risk factors for diabetes that we measured. And what we found, which was very interesting to us, is that those folks who had several risk markers for diabetes, even though they didn't have diabetes, those who had several risk factors for diabetes showed several markers of pain risk as well. So things like they were also more likely to experience more pain when we were testing them. They were more likely to be unable to inhibit pain signals when they needed to. We have some complicated tasks that allow us to see whether or not someone can shut pain off when they need to, and so we can look at individual differences in that. And those folks who had more risk factors for diabetes actually couldn't shut pain off as well as those with fewer risk factors. We also had markers of how well the nerves in your peripheral system function. So those are the nerves that carry the signal from, say, like your fingers and your hand to your spinal cord. So we can actually test how well those work. And those persons with a higher number of risk factors for diabetes, those nerves didn't seem to be functioning as well as those with fewer risk factors. And then we actually had a physiological marker of how well the signal is being processed in the spinal cord. And for those people who had a high number of diabetes risk factors, the spinal cord seemed to be responding more to the pain signal than those with fewer diabetes risk factors. So when you take all of these things together, given that we know there's a high risk of, and also not surprisingly, those who had the highest number of risk factors for diabetes tended to be Native Americans. So that part wasn't surprising to us because that's already sort of established in the literature. But what this suggests when you take it in total is that this might be sort of a pathway by which glucose dysregulation, blood sugar dysregulation might lead to not only diabetes, but may also lead to an increased risk for pain in the future. So it's important to note all these people were healthy, all these people were pain-free, so we weren't seeing chronic pain in the current population, but these were all markers. If you had a lot of diabetes risk factors, you also tended to have a lot of risk factors for potential chronic pain down the road. And so this is really the next stage in our research, and we're seeking funding right now to explore this in greater detail.
Let me ask you this then.
Sure.
I'm one of those Native Americans who has to deal with diabetes, and if I were putting a nail in the wall and accidentally, bang my thumb with that hammer, are you saying essentially that I would feel more and faster pain than someone who had none of those factors?
So it's an interesting question, and probably if you've explored this with your doctor, you know that if you don't take care of your diabetes well, at some point you can actually lose sensation in your fingers and toes, right? I mean, that's one of the things we know that's a bad complication of diabetes. So in a way, it sort of seems counterintuitive because if you're losing sensation, why would you increase pain sensation? But in fact, what we know early on in diabetes, as you start to get changes in blood glucose that are bad, when it's sort of dysregulated, you get these ups and downs, that this tends to have a negative effect on our nervous system. And originally, we really focused on the damage that seems to be going on in, say, the hands and feet, because the peripheral areas. And so that's why if you ever go into the doctor and they test for what's called peripheral neuropathy, which is really just a fancy word for nerve damage, they'll sort of touch you on your fingers and toes to see if you can sense that. Well, they very rarely actually test to see whether or not sensation of pain has changed, but what we know is that the same sort of peripheral nerves that are responsible for transmitting pain signals get damaged during this process, and in the early stages, that damage actually leads to heightened pain as opposed to dampened pain. So if you let diabetes go unchecked for long periods of time, ultimately you will lose the sensation of pain, right? So you can't actually feel painful things. But that's after many, many years of untreated or unregulated diabetes. But in the interim, you can be causing damage to the nerves that transmit pain, which actually might cause more pain. Now, we're focusing here on the peripheral things, and near your hands and feet and legs and such. But what we're also starting to see now is that there's evidence that diabetes and glucose dysregulation isn't just affecting those peripheral nerves. It actually may be affecting some central nerves, so areas of the brain and spinal cord. And some of these areas that may be damaged early on are important for being able to regulate pain. So there's an area in the brain which helps us control pain when we need to. That can turn pain off, and there's some evidence that area may be damaged by diabetes.
Now, if first of all, I'll try and remember not to bang my thumb with a hammer.
Bang your thumb, right?
But where do these results go? I guess there might be folks out there ultimately wondering what use is this information? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, where do you go? That's a great question. So the idea, so we really do need to do the next study to establish this relationship that we're talking about. One of the things, since we weren't looking for this particular relationship between blood glucose and pain, we weren't doing some of the important measurements that we need. For example, we didn't measure blood glucose. We didn't measure, how well the body can process glucose, like your doctor might if you went in to check for diabetes. So that's an important next step so that we can establish that it truly is changes in blood glucose or a dysregulation of blood glucose that is leading to these problems. So we need to establish that link. But let's assume that link is there. Then what this means is that it's really important that even before you start to show signs of diabetes, that those people at risk, so that have some of those risk factors that I mentioned earlier, may need to be very careful and begin to regulate their blood glucose before you start to get symptoms, because there may be a negative repercussion of affecting your pain system in such a way that puts you at risk for chronic pain down the road.
Now, Joanna, let me ask Joanna this. Does these findings then sort of confirm some suspicions for you? Is this a total surprise? How did it meet you, so to speak?
Well, it is different than we expected. From that original small pilot study, we were expecting the opposite, and I was so one of the things that I was hoping to do is know that natives that may have chronic pain may need different treatment approaches for managing that chronic pain. And so, yeah, it did kind of throw me for a bit of a loop because I would like to move at some point into treating chronic pain, as natives have the highest prevalence rates in a lot of areas of the body and are experiencing high rates of pain. So in that regard, it did change the way that I thought we would be moving forward. But still is it exciting looking at that connection between pain deficits and risk for diabetes.
Now, let me ask, I guess, the both of you then, will this information be forwarded to someone like the Indian Health Service for some practical application there?
Sure. So one of the things that is my role on the grant is to kind of maintain those relationships and connections with the tribal kind of people in our community. So we have we have IRB approval through Cherokee Nation, through IHS, Oklahoma City area office, and through TU. And we also have a very strong relationship with Indian Healthcare Resource Center of Tulsa that's down here on 5th and Peoria. And we reach out to them, definitely on a monthly basis, talking about where we're at. They've been huge in helping us recruit. And we definitely have plans to be reaching out to those partners and talking about what we've done and what our results are and where we're hoping to go.
Yeah, part of our ultimate plan is not just to do the work, but to disseminate the information. So in the next few months, we're going to be finalizing the study and finishing up our recruitment. We're very, very close. And so once we have all the numbers that we need, our plan is to write these up for publication. And we're also planning on presenting this to scientists coming up in September at the International Association for the Study of Pain meeting. But then part of our plan then is also to meet with our Native American partners and let them know what we're finding. We've already met with a few of them. We've met with Cherokee Nation to let them know, because they were actually very helpful in helping us move forward with the next grant proposal so that we could get funding for the glucose and diabetes portion of the next study. And so we plan on continuing to do that. Actually, Joanna's planning on presenting some of the findings this summer, and I'll let her tell you about that.
So I'm a member and secretary of the Society of Indian Psychologists, and we meet annually in June at Utah State University, and so I'll be presenting our data and results there. We also, this past September, presented at the Indian Health Service Behavioral Health Conference, which was held at the Hard Rock Casino, and definitely wanting to get this out. And really, it's been exciting because Jamie and I end up staying 30, 45 minutes after our presentation, people coming up, asking us, telling their stories about chronic pain, their relationship with pain and diabetes, and just a lot of anecdotal information, too, that is definitely valuable for what we're wanting to do.
I guess finally, has the Native American medical world talked to you, worked with you? Are they eager for this information? What's been their reaction so far?
So moving forward, kind of looking at diabetes risk and the relationship that we found in this study, we've had a lot of responsiveness from Cherokee Nation at the Three Rivers clinic, really wanting us to do some work with them and moving forward and figuring out the relationship with their population, as well as Indian Healthcare Resource Center is very eager in hearing what we've done and how that can directly affect their patients in terms of education, but also potential treatment and more positive health outcomes.
All right. Will you be taking more subjects for more study?
We're currently still recruiting. To wrap up this study, we'll be running, we're specifically trying to recruit Native American males. That has been our most challenging kind of group to recruit. So we'll be recruiting through early summer. And so, yes, absolutely, we're still recruiting for this current study, and we'll be recruiting for future studies, but currently not for new studies, just this current study.
All right. Would any of those subjects that you've already worked with be returning? Do you want to see them?
We are, part of the study does involve a follow-up portion, so for those who are willing to do so, we give them a phone call every 6 months and check in and see how they're doing, and we give them a quick screen. One of the things that we're interested in is whether any of our participants who were healthy when we tested them ultimately go on to develop pain, and if so, can we look at the data that we have and see if we can predict who those individuals would be, because that would be a wonderful opportunity for us to identify what are the markers that they have when they're healthy that might then lead them down the road to develop chronic pain. So we are continuing to follow up with all of our participants, and we plan to do that as long as we can. So it's based on money. We're providing gift cards for every time we call somebody, and it's about a 15 or 20 minute phone chat we have with them. And so as long as we can afford to pay our participants, we're going to continue that piece of it because we think it's important. So yes, please encourage those, and we are very, very grateful for all of the participants who have who've worked with us and contributed to this project. It's been very important, very eye-opening. I think a lot's going to stem from it. So we're still interested in having more participants.
And not only do we provide gift cards for the follow-ups, but we also reimburse for the time participants spend in the longer 2-day study. So they're able to be reimbursed for $100 each day, and also reimbursed for travel and lodging accommodations pending how far they're coming. And so, yes, definitely value. We know that their time is valuable, and so we definitely are able to reimburse for that.
All right. Any final thoughts from either one of you there?
Thanks for letting us be interviewed. We really want to get the word out. We're appreciative of all of the partners that are helping us do this work, and really dedicated to trying to figure out what's going on related to chronic pain and diabetic risk for our natives.
All right, fine. I'll go tell one of our staff members here who has been through your testing procedures and say, hey, Darren, you got a chance to get beat up again. So.
That's right.
All right.
We need 15 more males.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. We wish you, a wonderful experience with your study, and we'll be keeping our eyes open on this subject. So, let us know what's going on there.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we've got about a minute left. Let's do some really important stuff. Wild onion dinners. It's that season, and we've got one coming up March 3rd in the Holdenville Creek Indian Community from 11 to 3. You want to check that one out, and that's an all-you-can-eat. On the 24th, Little Caseta United Methodist Church. That's the 24th from 11 to 3. Also, it's at the church. And finally, Concharty United Methodist Church has theirs also on the 24th from 11 to 3, and that's northeast of Old Mogi there. So that's it. It looks like the Methodists have jumped out to the lead in wild onion dinners, and I'm ready for it. Okay, we want to say thank you so much for listening to us. This is Gary Fife. Mado Mabuhay. You've been listening to Muskogee Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.